what I want to cover today is how to effectively build a Facebook group, because really this is something that Mike and I kind of shied away from for a little bit. Like, we were pushing our Facebook group really heavy, and then we started to not utilize it as much. And
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, I think we lost him.
He's frozen.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened here.
At least he froze in a flattering position.
notice
I was just about to say that. I'm not sure what happened here. I think we're good now. Mike? Or not? Looks like we'll get him back in a second. What's up, Austin? Welcome in. We're just having a couple technical difficulties here. Mike's laptop shut down on him, but oh, he just popped back in.
No worries.
back.
Gotcha.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. My laptop just decided to completely shit the bed, like mid-sentence. That's always fun. Okay, cool. So let's get back into it. So it looks like we've got a good amount of people in here that already have Facebook groups. We've got awesome. So today, what I want to get into is really building out that Facebook group, what it looks like, and how it can turn into a primary source of booked appointments for you. So like I was kind of starting to mention, me and Mike have kind of gone through ebbs and flows of using Facebook groups and not using Facebook groups. But what we've noticed recently with utilizing Facebook groups is how to really turn those members into potential clients, booked calls, and stuff like that, and how to optimize your group to make sure that you're getting the most value out of it, right? Historically speaking, a lot of content that's built around building a Facebook group, a lot of what it is talking about how you have to post all the time in a Facebook group, you have to be super active, you have to be nurturing and all this stuff, and it's all, content every day. And what we've noticed is that that's not necessarily the truth. If you have an optimized Facebook group, and if you're to the point where you aren't in a place that you can consistently nurture on a day-to-day basis, you can still get extremely effective results out of a Facebook group with really just like one training per week. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. So I want to talk about how to set up your Facebook group to be optimized and different ideas that you could be doing in order to turn this into a lead source for you and your business. So I'm going to share my screen here. So this group right here, this is one of our Facebook groups, and this is a group that only has 715 members right now. It's not like a 30,000 member group or anything, but this Facebook group has actually brought us a good amount of clients who have been able to be nurtured into a yes, right? So typically what we do in all of our processes, in pretty much any email that we send out that's nurturing a lead, anything like that, we include our Facebook group link so that people can get more of a feel for who we are as individuals. Now, what I want to talk about is the difference between our group and the groups that you guys would be building, but overall the strategy is the same. So with the angle that we took with this group, we created coaches connecting coaches as our group, mainly just because we wanted to create a space where coaches were able to connect with each other, network together, and ultimately, work together in certain ways, right? So when creating coaches connecting coaches, this was a way for us to have coaches gravitate towards our group as a networking opportunity, but still potentially be able to nurture those individuals into clients, right? Into paying clients. So as you can see here, we've kind of accomplished that overall goal of creating that networking space, because there's a lot of people that are posting outside of us as admins. There's a lot of people that are posting what they do. We stream all of our interviews and all of our podcasts into this group, and there's people that are posting content. So that's the cool thing about creating a group in a way that you're creating kind of like a networking atmosphere, is the fact that people are motivated to post themselves in the group. So then instead of you becoming the only one that's nurturing the group with content, now you're creating a space where people are sharing their stuff, right? Sharing their value. And that doesn't take away from your value. It just increases the engagement in the group and increases the amount of people who are in that group that are contributing to the overall activity of that group, right? So there's a couple different ways that you can take the idea of building a Facebook group. So typically what I see people doing wrong with building a Facebook group is that they make a Facebook group that's built around their offer, right? And what I mean by that is, like, if this group was automated coaching engine group, we probably wouldn't have as many members as we do in it right now. The reason why we have a lot of members in this group is because it's niche, right? Coaches connecting coaches. So obviously it's for coaches. And we're creating an environment where people feel comfortable joining and they don't think it's just going to be a pitch fest, right? So what you want to think about when you're creating your Facebook group is you want to think about, what is the underlying piece of value that I want to provide for my audience, right? And how can I create a group that has the atmosphere that is in correlation with that overall topic? So, for all of you that are on this call right now, just drop a message into the Automated Coaching Engine group with what you would theoretically make a group about, or like what your group is currently about. Is it about dating? Is it about personal development? Is it about like energy healing? Like, go ahead and just drop what your Facebook group is currently about, so that I can get a pulse check on those different ideas so far. And while you guys are doing that, I'm going to get into the different ways to optimize your group. So number one, your group should always be private. So the reason why your group should be private is because it creates a buffer, it creates a wall between someone who's interested in your group and the content that's inside. So for instance, like if I was someone who was interested in, let's see some of these messages here. So let's say I was somebody that was interested in resilience, authenticity, and healing trauma. Like I was interested in that, right? But when I go to a group, all the content is free and available to me. I might not actually enter that group as a member. I might just kind of look from the outside and just take a peek at it whenever I want to, right? So shielding the content by making it private is what creates that incentive for that individual to say, like, I really want to see what's inside of this group, right? So first things first is your group should be private. Second thing is the name of your group. So the name of your group should not just be the name of your program. It should be something that, thinking from your ideal client avatar, it should be something that individual looks at and says, I want to be a part of that, right? So coaches connecting coaches, most coaches that come across our group say, I want to be a part of that because I want to connect with other coaches, right? So we have a lot of people who enter our group because they're interested in connecting with other coaches. So what can you create with your name? Because the name is the main thing that people see when they're looking up Facebook groups, they're coming across a Facebook group. The name is that first thing. So how can you create a name that attracts your clients to say, like, I want to be in that group because there's probably a ton of value in there. So like like with resilience, like maybe that group is something along the lines of, resilience and how it correlates to X, right? So thinking about what I think about with a Facebook group name is this: what is my overall value that I'm bringing to the table? And then in connection to that, what does my ideal avatar want out of this transformation? So if resilience is the value, and I'm providing a ton of value on resilience and healing trauma, what does this person want out of that, right? So the group is like resilience and how it ties to your overall fulfillment in life, like certain things like that. Something that someone would come across that if they're currently experiencing that problem, they're able to see it and say, okay, maybe my solution is inside of this group. So the name is a really important piece, because that's really what people are going to ultimately judge the group off of, to be honest with you. Unless they're just going into it to do like outreach and stuff like that. If it's a group that they want to join for a purpose, then that name has to kind of coincide with that purpose and what they're ultimately going to get. Yep, transforming pain into resilience is perfect. I love that idea. Awesome. Yeah, these are great. Perfect. Just wanted to take a look at that. Awesome. Yeah, so like Austin, in your case, just to kind of chime in on that, is like you're like the name, if the name of your program also pulls people towards the overall mission, then it still kind of makes sense, right? Like the evolved alpha, and then tying that into something along the lines of like what they actually want, right? So yeah, like tying into that name of like the evolved alpha, fulfillment in X, and X, whatever that case may be, something that pulls those people towards it. But, a lot of our program names, now that we've been doing a lot of deep diving into what those names should be, a lot of our program names do kind of have that attraction feel to it, where someone would be pulled towards it just because of the name. So just think a little bit deeper on like your name of your program and if it coincides with that Facebook group. But having a simple Facebook group name is definitely the first piece to think about when you're optimizing your group. What would my target audience come across and say, I need to be a part of that? Now, the second thing that you definitely want to do is this. So every single time that you create a Facebook group, you should have membership questions in order to get into that group. And this is the huge piece. This is the main piece that we need to have in our Facebook group. It's private. Now we have to have membership questions that allow us to actually generate leads from it, right? So you can see with our membership questions are, what type of value / connections are you looking for in this group? So that question is kind of like gauging what type of content do you want to see in this group, right? Like what type of content are you interested in, or what are you looking for out of this group? And then question number 2, where are you currently at with your coaching business? So this gives us an idea of, where they're at, if they're a beginner, if they just, if they're reaching 10K a month already, whatever the case may be. And then the next question is, where would you like to get to with your coaching business? So what this does is every member that gets into our group, we have an idea of where they are and where they're looking to get to. Now, if I can take that info and I can show them that we are the bridge that can help them get from point A to point B, well, now I can book an appointment with this prospect, right? But the thing I would like you guys to do with creating your membership questions is be even more direct than this. The reason we have it this way is because we're taking this as like a networking group, right? So like we don't want it to just be like a sales pitch in our membership questions, because it's more of like a networking type of thing. But with your Facebook group, what I highly recommend is that you have one question that asks them for their email and incentivize that email, right? So like when you're creating a question about like enter your email here, you don't want it to just say enter your email here. You want it to say enter your email here and I'll send you over X, Y, and Z, right? So maybe what it is like they get your mini course, or maybe they get your webinar, right? Like maybe they get some piece of value out of giving you their email, right? And what that does is now you're building an email list out of your Facebook group members. And why that becomes important is because if you have emails of all of your group members, now when you're going live for a Facebook Live in your group, you can email your whole entire list and tell them that you're about to go live in the group. Make sure you tune in. So the number one problem that most people run into with building a Facebook group is that there's no engagement, no activity, nobody looks at the post, nobody engages with it. And it's because they just don't know. Facebook algorithm is not in favor of groups by any means. Like, you know, people won't see your content. Some people get notified, like a small percentage, but most of them won't see it unless they looked at the group intentionally, right? So building an email list of your Facebook group so that you can send out an email letting them know, hey, on Tuesday at noon, I'm going to be going live covering this topic. If you're currently struggling with X, Y, and Z, make sure that you're there. Now you're driving engagement and people want to be there for that training. So you're making it an event instead of just a Facebook Live, right? And that's where it becomes really effective. And that's where I saw a huge increase in our trainings when we were being really consistent with them in the past. And starting this week, I have it on my docket to be a lot more consistent with building this group because it was a primary source of information and leads for us that we kind of walked away from because ads were working and organic was working. But reality is when you get to any point in business, like every single channel of leads is important, whether it's a Facebook group, whether it's organic outreach, whether it's ads. Like once you get to a certain point of revenue, every single source is important. So that's where we're at is like, hey, look, we need to maximize everything. YouTube, Facebook group, like organic content, organic outreach, ads, like that's where we're at is just expanding. So this is a huge intention of mine starting this week, this coming week. But with you, with your qualifying questions or your questions to get into the group, have one be like, provide your email and then in parentheses say like, I'm going to send you this for absolutely free just for being a part of the group. So I'm going to send you over the X webinar for absolutely free. I'm going to send you over my mini course for absolutely free, right? So that's one of the questions. The second question would be similar to our first question. Like what type of value are you looking for in this group? I want to make sure to provide you with as much value as possible, right? So now you have their email, you have an idea of what they're looking for out of the group. So now what you're doing is you're creating ideas for content in the group, right? If someone's saying like, well, you know, I'm struggling with depression because of, you know, things that happened to me in the past. Now you can talk about that topic on a Facebook Live event. And odds are if one person's struggling with it, there's probably a lot more that are. So that becomes a content piece for your Facebook group. And then the third question, you want it to be a checkbox. And this is where you can generate a majority of your leads, right? That checkbox will say, do you want support in X? Check yes if so, right? And then in parentheses, you can say, I'll be reaching out to you if you say yes type of thing. So what that does is now any member that joins the group and like, let's say, you know, your question, just to throw like an example that's on this call, let's say your question is, you know, do you want support in your healing journey? Check yes if you do, right? Now, if someone says yes, you have the permission to then reach out to that individual and set up a phone call and just mention, hey, you know, I saw through your questionnaire that you're looking for a ton of value around, you know, anxiety, for instance. And I saw that you checked the yes box about me reaching out. So I just wanted to reach out so we can create a, you know, relationship and set up a connection call for us to talk a little bit further about this. How does tomorrow at 2 p.m. EST sound, right? So now you're creating an inbound channel where you're getting emails. So you're owning that traffic. 2, you're getting content ideas. And 3, you're getting direct permission to set up appointments with anybody who says yes, right? So those are the 2 main pieces for setting up and optimizing this Facebook group. Number 1 is make sure that your title of your group is something that your target audience needs to join. Like it makes no sense for them to not be a part of this group. Number 2 is the membership questions. Make sure that your first one is asking for their email and incentivizing that email with a free training. Number 2 is making sure that you're getting those content ideas by what type of value are you looking for in this group. And then number 3 is check yes if you need support along this journey. And then that's where you get that permission to reach out. So we've covered those two things, the title of the group, the membership questions. And then the next piece that I wanted to talk about is about the actual content of the group, right? And how you can drive traffic to the group. So those are 3 and 4. So number 3 is the content for the group. So like I said, because you're asking these questions, you're pulling content ideas from these questions, right? The what type of value are you looking for in this group? Now you have content ideas. And you really only need to maybe go live and do a live training in your Facebook group once a week. And then maybe you can just post like, a selfie with like a long caption on another day. Like I would say you only really need to post in a Facebook group 1 to maybe 3 times a week max. Because if you're constantly posting every single day and flooding content, people just kind of get bored of it. Like we all follow those people on social media where because they post like 4 times a day, it's just like, like on to the next person. Just because you see it so much that it becomes, you almost just become, like too used to the content that it's not interesting anymore, right? So we still want to create that environment where the content is exciting. So how we do this is through getting those emails so that we can set up micro events in the Facebook group, right? So now when you're collecting those emails, like I said, you can announce what day you're going live and let them know, hey, mark it on your calendar on Wednesday at 2 p.m. EST. I'm going to be live talking about X, Y, and Z in my group. Make sure that you're there because it's going to be like extremely powerful, right? So as far as content, you really only need to post like 1 to 3 times a week. Don't think that you have to post like 24/7 in a Facebook group. Like I said, that's what kind of like overexerts people and they're just like not as interested anymore. So make sure it is sporadic and make sure that you are using those emails to blast out your trainings and increase that engagement, creating those micro events that you can then use those people who are engaging on those posts. You can reach out to them manually, ask them how the training was, and try and flip them into a booked call, right? So that's kind of the content piece is like my 2 favorite parts of pieces of content for Facebook groups are 1, like live trainings, and 2, doing like selfies with long captions that use our framework of the call out, the pain, the solution, and then the call to action, right? And then number 4, the last thing I wanted to talk about is getting into how to drive traffic to your Facebook group. So with driving your traffic to your Facebook group, this becomes a piece where you can drive everything to your Facebook group, right? So if you get committed to this process of these qualifying questions, the content, all those pieces, if you get really committed to this process, then every single call to action that you create can be pushed towards this Facebook group because when your members join, you'll get these qualifying question answers that you'll be able to use to then flip them into booked calls, right? So what you'll be able to do is just like Munir's doing, you can have the Facebook group in your TikTok. And every time that you talk about anything on TikTok, your call to action can be join my Facebook group in my bio, right? Same thing with Instagram. Instagram, you can put the links now on your stories. So you can provide a bunch of value on your story, a selfie video talking about this, this, and this. And by the way, if this resonated with you, make sure to click this link right here so that you can join my free Facebook group, right? So now all of your content starts to filter to this Facebook group, and anybody who's been interested in what you're talking about gets pushed to this Facebook group where they then have to answer those membership questions that provide you with an automated source of leads, right? Just from people being interested in your content. So that's really how this whole thing plays out, because think about it like this. If you are posting content and you're driving traffic on Instagram, let's say, and you're saying, click the link in my bio and it's a website, for instance, right? They're consuming your content on your website, they're looking at it, but there's nothing that captures that traffic, right? So I could go on your website, I could look around, and if I'm not immediately interested in connecting with you, I have no option to stay there. I'm just going to move on. And think about how small the attention span is of everybody in 2022, right? So we need to make sure that we're capturing any sort of attention into something where we can nurture that lead. So that's why those opt-ins are very important, is by being able to capture that traffic. But imagine if everything you pushed to was to a gated Facebook group that you just provided a ton of value on your story or an Instagram post or whatever the case may be. And this person's like, okay, this person just told me to go to their link in their bio. They click it. It's a private Facebook group with exactly what they're looking for, but they can't get in yet. What are they going to do? They're going to ask to join. And they're going to answer those 3 questions. And that's going to incentivize them to take the next step into your atmosphere. And instead of that being somebody who just came across your website and moved on with their life, now that's somebody who you have their email, you have the content that they're looking for, and you have permission to reach out to them if they answer yes, right? So that's really how the whole Facebook group funnel works, is by taking your content and driving it to a Facebook group that's private, has an attractive name, and has membership questions. And that way you're getting some actual info from all your members. I know a lot of people, and we made this mistake early on too. I don't think we added in membership questions until we had like 500 members in the group. So as a result, we have 500 people in our group that we have no idea where they were at when they joined. We don't have their email. We don't have their permission to reach out to them. Like, all that information is gone. So as a result, there's like only 200 members in this group, as opposed to 700 that we have that information that we need to make it an effective group, right? So if you guys can make these tweaks now, depending on where your groups are at, doesn't matter if you have 100 members or if you have 50 members, if you can make this adjustment, you will create something that can actually feed you appointments, and your content will attract them to actually joining this group. So those are the main pieces. And then the last thing I want to mention that is important to jam on too is there is a software. If you really want to go hard with a Facebook group, which I definitely recommend, like, especially where you guys are at, anybody who has launched outreach, like, you're aware of the fact that now you have a little bit more time on your hands, right? All of our coaches that launch outreach, they start to kind of be a little bit stuck because they're like, all right, what do I do next, right? And what you do next is you assetize the business, right? I don't know if I like that word, but you make assets out of your fulfillment piece of the business, and then you figure out other ways to make deals, other ways to attract clients. So all of us really, or most of us, have the time to be able to spend on curating this Facebook group. So I do recommend all of us get into doing this and treat it as a project.
You're muted.
You're muted. I just caught it. But thank you. But this software right here called GroupKit, this is a software where it's actually a CRM for your Facebook group. So, like, check this out, take a quick note of it. It's got a 14-day free trial. But this allows you to have like a CRM so that when you capture those emails through the questions, they filter into like a spreadsheet automatically. And that makes it a little bit easier for you to actually, communicate with that person and capture that email. So GroupKit is a good place to look at. And I know there's ways to do some cool stuff with like transferring information from GroupKit into our app. That way you can send text messages, emails, whatever you want to send. So maybe take a note of GroupKit for you to look at, just so that you can stay organized with building the Facebook group. But cool. That is my jam session for the day. So go ahead and comment in the group if you learned something new today with building the Facebook group. Go ahead and kind of drop any questions that you have into the group. I think that this is probably the best way to run the calls right now, just so that we don't have like anybody speaking over each other. So if you have any questions, drop them into the Automated Coaching Engine group, and then we will I'll kind of call on you guys one by one so that we can talk about them. Makes it a little bit easier than the unmute thing where everybody unmutes at once and we're kind of trying to figure out like, okay, who's going to ask first? Perfect. I see a couple people typing. All right, first question. So much info. Share the link to group kit. Got you. No problem.
Yeah, and while you're doing that too, I'll piggyback off of you. I'll just highlight like the fact that like, really look at this as like a long-term play, as far as like, building a community, like, just looking at it as a standpoint, like even from our group, 700 members, like that's 700 people that we can still, go live in the group. We can go through the members with, and reach out to them, if they look like they're a good fit. There's lots of lots of different things that we can go back and get in front of them about. And that's really where I see the value of it. Is it's almost like creating, and I mean, you really are creating an email list with the questions, but it's almost like creating like a list of like people that are interested in your shit just through Facebook in general. And if you think about that, like think of all of the big things that Facebook has done in the past, and all of the things that they're talking about with the metaverse, and just like the overall like size of opportunity, I think is much higher inside of like a Facebook group as far as grabbing engagement versus leveraging something like just email and SMS. Email and SMS is can be like highly regarded or disregarded, depending on like how interested people are in your message itself. Whereas Facebook is a social media platform, as you all know, that a lot of people spend a lot of time on. And just like leveraging that as like an asset that you can continue to get in front of, to me is much more valuable than collecting email addresses, SMS, stuff like that. So to give you an idea as to like why I'm bringing that up is because the main like way that we started to grow our group was we were giving away like an Instagram mini course, and we gave that mini course like sharing strategies as to how you can get better traction on Instagram, things like that. And how we grew that group was because in the course we pushed them to the group. So we basically did reverse of what I'm talking about, if that makes sense. So we got a lot more leads from people through our email list and stuff like that, but the translation over into the Facebook group obviously came a little bit lower. Like the conversion was a little bit lower. So if you think about it on the flip side, like, hey, join my Facebook group, this is where I'm going to give you all the cool shit. And then every time you make a webinar or a mini course or any type of training, you drop it into that group, a YouTube video, all these different things you can populate into that group and just leverage it as like some sort of list. But on the flip side, you can leverage it like Mike was talking about, as far as connecting it into the app, and then leverage that to be a way to express like times like, hey, I'm going live at this time. You can send them emails and SMS that are about your upcoming live training, so they can register, put it in their calendar, whatever they need to do, so they show up. So you can kind of use all of these three pieces, or all of the pieces in social media and SMS and email marketing, all of those pieces to kind of like communicate with each other, but ultimately like funnel back into, increasing your engagement inside of the Facebook community itself. But I just kind of wanted to bring that up just because that's something that where I feel like we made the mistake in the past was, going more so heavy on SMS and emails and then driving people into the group. Whereas I think like you can accomplish the same result of getting SMS and emails, but focusing on that Facebook traffic is much more valuable in my eyes.
100%. And like as things expand, like all of these pieces are super important as like you grow. Like it's important now to think. That's why me and Mike are always talking about what we did wrong. Like we want you guys to like learn from what we did wrong in each process so that you guys can set yourself up for later, right? And like Facebook groups become another thing that you can target once you start to scale your business and maybe step into advertising on Facebook. Like now that becomes an asset that you can actually advertise and target your Facebook group members through ads. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. And it's important to think about all of these when it comes to building that overall group at the end of the day. Now with some of the questions, Emily, how heavy on niche should we be in naming the Facebook group? Should it be super tight or a little bit more loose? Definitely a good question there. What I would say is you don't want to go like, ultimately you want to niche everything, right? Because if it's not directly correlated with someone you'd want to work with. Maybe it's not like the biggest benefit to have that person in the group, but at the same time, you know, creating something that's a little bit open like we did, right? Like our niche is transformational coaches, but we just did coaches connecting coaches because it creates that environment of collaboration. So you could go that route where like instead of niching, you keep it a little bit broad, just like you said, like turning pain to resilience. That's a really good idea because like now anybody that is entering that group is looking to make that transformation, and you're creating an environment of individuals that are at least going to interact in the group and provide value in there, right? So like I would say, you know, not every Facebook group member, one, not every Facebook group member is going to be your ideal prospect. And number two, not every group member has to be your ideal prospect, because it's also just the importance of the activity in the group. Because the more active your group is, the more people will be notified when you're going live and stuff like that. So overall, like my answer would say, I would probably keep it a little bit more open because it creates more of an environment for people to come in and interact with each other. So I hope that answers your question. Was your mini course live or pre-recorded? Great question there. So our mini course was pre-recorded, and we house it on our app. The ACE app that we have. So it's hosted on there. It's a pre-recorded mini course, only 5 videos long. It's nothing too crazy, but it is valuable. It's basically the process that we run for lead generation, but it teaches people how to do it themselves. So like instead of our team running it for them, they have to learn it and actually implement the information. But mini courses are a really good way to capture information from like, you know, clients that are kind of on the fence, or people, you know, getting opt-ins like emails and phone numbers. Mini courses are a really good way to do that. We used to have it like a heavy part of our program was building a mini course, but it just became something that was like a lot of people got hung up on. You know, they spent too much time focusing on the mini course, and it's not like one of those things where it's going to make or break your business. And we tend to focus on like, what's the direct aligned action that is going to drive revenue for you. But like now that you guys have a little bit more time, outreach is launched, then a mini course is a good idea to get into. And I recommend like 3 to 5 videos for a mini course. You don't want it to be super long and extensive, just like a quick bit of information that they can get that you're able to get their email and phone number from.
The biggest thing, I'll piggyback off of that too, but the biggest, like, to sum up like the context of the mini course, like the contents inside, I always kind of like tell people to frame it as like a, you know, like your first video would be like a welcome, like kind of like an intro to who you are with some credibility, maybe some testimonials, something like that. Then your next 3 videos would be kind of like the structure of the content, which in my eyes, the best way to do this is like a who, what, or a what, why, and how. So pretty much like, what is it that you're going to be teaching? You know, why are you teaching it, and how can they implement it? So in the fitness side of things, or like a habit, you know, a habit tracking side of things, it could be like, these are the habits that I'm going to be showing you, you know, to how to use. Why am I going to be showing you X, Y, and Z? How do you implement these habits yourself? Here you go. And then your last video is kind of like a what's next situation. The best play in my eyes is to kind of like push it into, you know, obviously your program, but more so like focus on selling the call in this last video. So pushing it to like, all right, cool. You know, I hope you got some great value here. Next steps is booking a call with me. I'd love to see how I can help you more, type of thing. And then that's where you can kind of like pre-frame that into being, you know, like essentially a sales call, you know, qualifying them for, you know, kind of like the next step. But yeah, I think that's like probably the best way that you can leverage keeping a mini course like short, sweet, and to the point, and yet effective as far as like pushing them into the next step. Which, by the way, we do have like this like templated out inside of the inside of your ACE accounts already. So something that that we can definitely help you out with as far as establishing just like Mike said, it's, we realized that it wasn't something that was like a key thing, but definitely something that's good as far as like getting back in front of like positive responses and, people that generally like showed interest, but they never like pushed through to the next step. These types of like assets are good for that, PDFs, webinars, mini courses, like quote unquote, like lead magnets. It's good to get back in front of people.
100%. Awesome. And then one last question is, can people make purchases directly through your app? Can they only do it on a call? So they can make purchases directly through our app. So our app integrates with Stripe. So if you have a Stripe account, you can set Stripe up in our app. And if you need help with that, like Aaron can take care of it. You guys can set up a call and just kind of, iron that piece out. But you integrate Stripe with our app. And people can purchase through funnels. So you can set up like a product that's in a funnel and they can just do a 2-step checkout form and they can purchase a program, whatever the case may be. You can also send one-time invoices that are text invoices in our app. So let me just kind of show you quick, just because I have it open, like what that looks like overall. Because the text payment links are really cool for the app. Jeez, I got the mountain Wi-Fi today, seriously. You'd think I'm in like Switzerland or something. Okay, here we go. So basically, once you have Stripe integrated with our app, you can actually set up an invoice as quick as, if you're in a text message situation, you can literally just press this money request payment, and this creates an invoice for you. So you can press like, whatever the program is, you can put the price, 50,000 G's. But yeah, you can put the invoice date, expiration date, and then as soon as you click save, it creates like a one-time invoice link that you send to the prospect, and then they can pay through that link, and it's set up with Stripe. So it's pretty cool. It's very seamless. Like you can create instant invoices in like a couple, typing a couple sentences and getting everything squared away. But yes, overall, you can take payments in the app. Any other